Ever think about starting a game series, but there are so many titles that you find it intimidating? Perhaps it gives you a little bit of anxiety? And then you travel down that list of titles. Where do I start? From release order? Or is it better to play them chronologically by their place in the timeline? Are some of these remasters or remakes? Someone just tell me where to begin. Well, for me, one of those series has been the Trails series, a niche JRPG that sits itself firmly in getting releases every few years that are pretty easy to tell where to start and how the continuity moves, but also just as daunting to start nonetheless. So it was a great surprise to me to see Falcom's first trailer for Trails in the Sky First Chapter Remake for like 10 seconds in a sizzle reel of a Nintendo Direct. I feel like we should be giving this a little more attention. But either way, Falcom has been generous enough to grace us with their presence and drop a pretty meaty demo for the game. And I've put my fair share of time into it.
Now let's get this right on the show!
The demo covers the opening hours of the game, a standard for most JRPG demos nowadays, and the progress is transferable to the main game, which releases on September 19th. Now, as I mentioned, I don't have extensive knowledge about the Trails series. I tried a demo for Cold Steel 3, I think, years ago, and the battle system just overwhelmed me. Coming back with an open mind and a relatively clean plate so that I do have time to play the game is definitely a plus. I spent a lot of time here getting used to the combat and understanding the mechanics. I still don't think I have a firm grasp on the system as a whole, but I assume that understanding will come to me as I continue to play the game. And also, if you're a longtime Trails fan, if you could give some pointers in the comments, that'd also be pretty neat.
Be sure to stay quiet.
Too simple!
To say that Trails combat is easy to understand is not necessarily untrue. It's pretty easy to get into the flow of how the combat works, but I think mastery requires a lot more thought than you might expect. It is still early game, but I felt like there was actually a decent amount of difficulty and complexity that I don't experience in a lot of JRPGs. The combat itself starts off with real-time action. Basically, you get to swing your weapon around and whack enemies. You can kill them like this. There isn't a necessity to drop into the turn-based combat section for regular battles. In a lot of cases, it's actually faster to deal with enemies in the action combat. But your moves are limited. You have a basic attack string and then a special move, and that's really about it. You can dodge attacks, but even your defensive options are fairly limited. You can press a button to enter turn-based combat at any point during action combat. However, if an enemy hits you enough during action combat, you will be automatically sent into turn-based, and if you fill up an enemy's stun gauge, you can initiate turn-based combat with an advantage. The turn-based system opens up a plethora of options. You can use magic, you have access to multiple special moves, and you can guard. But this isn't just turn-based combat. Much like games such as XCOM, Fire Emblem, and Mario & Rabbids, you will have to position your characters accordingly. At first, you'll probably think this is pretty simple. Position based on greater damage or where you need to be to hit the enemy. But as time goes on, you'll find that ignoring positioning and not thinking about what your opponent can do will also get you into some pretty dicey situations. AoE attacks are common, so spreading out your team is good. Sometimes you'll be inhibited by how far you can move in one turn, making positioning from too great a distance a detriment if your opponent can outpace you. And sometimes enemies will explode on death, and you don't want to set off a bomb right in front of you. All special moves and magic have different ranges as well, so setting up attacks and trying to make enemies line up for an optimal attack is another factor in the combat system. For me, it was incredibly engaging. I'm not the smartest or most skilled person in the world, and because of that, this system does keep me on my toes. The blend of both the action and turn-based helps because sometimes it's up to me to decide if ending a battle would be faster in action, or if it would be better to progress into turn-based combat. And now watch this. Did you see that? No? Yeah, that's the point. The game doesn't even load in and out of combat. There are no seams here. And that just contributes to how fast-paced the game feels. Even in turn-based combat, things are moving quick. You gotta pay attention.
Why can't you ever just give me a normal compliment?
As with a lot of anime-styled RPGs, this world is full of color. It's vibrant. The characters have unique enough designs to distinguish them as well, pretty much a signature of a lot of these kinds of JRPGs. And the world itself isn't really open. There's a lot to explore and a lot of paths to go down, but for the most part it's pretty linear, just with a few caveats to keep things interesting. But in the long run, you're mostly going to be beelining it to objectives. This probably is what you'd expect from a JRPG of this size. And of course, I'm not really a world design critic. I feel like as long as the world suits the story, or vice versa, the game is fine.
You're the one who asked.
No, I'm not summarizing the story. Go play the demo, it's free. The short form is that you play as Estelle Bright, the daughter of Cassius Bright, a high-ranking bracer in the Bracers Guild in Roland. Her father brings home a corpse, but it's actually a young boy named Joshua, and then we get no explanation as to why. Flash forward 10 years, the kids are 16, is it 10 years or 5? I don't really remember. And they're training hard to become bracers, and follow in their father's footsteps. This does take a bit of time to set up, and you're going to have to go through a lot of dialogue and tutorials before you get the chance to really start doing any fighting. That's honestly fine by me, but for some people they may not be expecting it to take this long to get off the ground, and actually start doing the engaging parts of the game that are not just the story. But this is a JRPG, so you should expect a lot of dialogue. I'm hooked on the overall setup and the end of the prologue, with the threads that have been laid out for me by the events within the prologue. I can't rate the story on that just because it's literally the opening hours of the game. You don't read the first chapter of a book and give it a numerical rating.
I've come to study the tower for my research on ancient civilizations.
I think Trails in the Sky resembles a lot of PS3 era JRPGs. The ones that are evidently not as polished as some titles, and feel a bit stiff in some areas like animations. But that's not to say it's bad, just that the game invokes that vibe. I don't have a ton of nostalgia for that era, since I wasn't really huge into JRPGs back then, but if you do, you might get what I mean. I will also say that the English dub feels a little bit flat in some areas, certain characters at least. It's not particularly bad, I just think that the performance kind of varies between characters, and whether that's a VA thing or a director thing is up in the air. Ultimately, it doesn't really bother me that much, and I think it's fine. I don't feel like it's that bad. You know, if I've played a game recently with a pretty bad English dub, you know, those are two. You can tell when it's like just bad overall, and when, you know, it just feels like it's a little short on the emotion, but it's not bad. The game overall looks good. There are definitely some animations that got a ton of care, and you can tell based on how smooth they look. At the same time, a lot of these animations do remind me of PS3 era JRPGs, like I said before. And that's not a bad thing, it's just I want you to know that not everything in this is going to be insanely high quality on the visuals, on par with some bigger JRPGs that are currently out there.
So bright.
Say that again?
And so far, Trails in the Sky, first chapter, is looking to be another fantastic JRPG. I really hope it's able to deliver on that overall, but it is a remake of the game that is fairly well acclaimed as far as I'm concerned, so I don't really doubt that it'll keep up that momentum. Unless they do some crazy changes in the middle. Sticking the landing is always one of the scariest parts for video games as a consumer. You never really know what could go wrong with them in this day and age. But I have pretty high hopes for Trails in the Sky first chapter, and I hope my impressions or explanations have given you a desire to at least give the demo a shot if you were on the fence. And you can let me know in the comments how you feel about Trails in the Sky, and whether you've played these games in the past or not. You can leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe to the channel for more things JRPG related. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.
キャプテンキッドペルソナ